In gaming, one skill reigns supreme. You might not know it, but being able to hear your opponents is often the difference between the joyful shouts of victory and the deafening silence of defeat. From footsteps in Counter-Strike to abilities in League to just how weird games feel when you can't hear anything, a good gaming headset is just as important as a mouse, keyboard, or controller when it comes to your peripherals. But not just any pair of headphones can give you the accurate spatial sound you need to support your team and win. Hey there, I'm Colten, one of the hosts of the JBL Esports tech show Cracked, but today I'm here to talk to you about one headset in particular. The JBL Quantum 910 wireless headset features JBL Quantum's QuantumSPHERE 360 technology for 3D audio. But why does 3D audio matter? And how does JBL Quantum's tech even work? Well, let's get into it. Okay, so the thing that sets the JBL Quantum 910 wireless gaming headset apart is JBL QuantumSPHERE 360. Using an algorithm and the JBL Quantum engine, the JBL Quantum 910s can process the audio in any game you play and convert it into accurate spatial 3D audio that feels more real than any other headset on the market. But before we get into how it does this or why it matters, we should probably take a step back and explain what 3D audio even is. 3D audio is pretty simple. You already kind of know it as surround sound, where you place speakers in a certain arrangement in your room to create an environment where the sound of the movie you're watching or the game you're playing is all around you, just like the sound designers intended. And as you might imagine, it's actually pretty difficult to get surround sound from a pair of headphones. Think about it. You don't have 5 or even 7 speakers strategically placed all over a room to create a soundscape. You just have 2 speakers strapped to your head that make it sound like the audio is coming from inside your head. So for a long time, many headsets have offered virtual surround sound, which is just a bunch of different filters that try to mimic the effects of actual surround sound. And remember, if your audio isn't good enough, you're going to get destroyed. And this is where JBL Quantum comes in. And the first thing they did was build something called the Hyperion Sphere, loaded it with speakers, and then blasted some poor dummy with audio until they figured out exactly how our ears hear sound in 3D space.
What we do is one arc in this sphere has way more speakers, right? So instead of rotating the speakers around the person, we rotate the person in the chair. So we do a ton of measurements, basically around like 360 for both ears. So imagine that times 2. It's a lot of measurements.
That was Alfredo Franco, Senior Director of Intelligent Audio at Harman and one of the people behind JBL QuantumSPHERE 360. He and his team measured every aspect of how we spatially locate things based on sound, measuring things like interaural time difference, ITD, which is the time between a sound reaching each ear, and interaural level difference, ILD, which is the perceived change in intensity between each ear. And then the technology behind JBL QuantumSPHERE 360 adds a ton of filters to the audio that comes from your favorite game to trick our brains into hearing all those little data points that help us accurately locate audio in the real world.
We can print ILD and ITD and static EQ to a sound. Like you imagine you record a violin in a very non-reverberant place. So it's just the violin. The filters that we measured can be applied. The filters are just a very advanced EQ, like a very high resolution EQ. If you add that to the sound, your brain is gonna go and try to extract ILD, ITD, and the EQ and it's gonna say like, because I found these features, that sound has to be 0 degrees elevation, 30 degrees azimuth. So like to your right.
And to make sure all that data would actually matter in your game, the engineers behind QuantumSPHERE 360 worked with gaming companies to ensure that their tech would work when you're trying to clutch.
We took a VR headset, back in the days was really new, and we took a game engine and then started coding the algorithms directly inside the game engine, because that gave us both real-time tracking, plus the opportunity to add this 3D sound to games and so on. And that's how it started, and that's how we actually started using game engines to do the development.
The JBL Quantum 910s also have head tracking technology, which is actually really important for realistic, accurate spatial audio. Think about it. When you're wearing headphones, the audio is always stuck to your head. When you move, the sound doesn't change in any way. But in the real world, if you move, certain sounds will get quieter or louder depending on how close you are to them. No matter how big your ego is, the world isn't centered around you. Head tracking lets the soundscape realistically move with you, which makes it easier to determine where a sound is coming from in-game, simply by moving your head slightly.
If a source is too elevated, you're not really good at distinguishing. Things above, let's say 45 degrees, it's very difficult. It's like a camera, like it has a limited field of view. It's the same for the auditory system. There's also a limited range of view. We're really good at localizing sounds in front and at probably this height. And when we hear something that is outside that range, we tend to kind of scan for that sound, which makes it go into the region where our auditory system works better.
And any game where sound and accuracy are important is better with this kind of technology. Think about playing Counter-Strike. You're on Mirage, you're standing on Catwalk, and you're trying to figure out if the other team is going for a fast B hit through apps or wrapping around through underpass. Without accurate spatial audio, it's basically impossible, and if you end up on the wrong site, your team's probably going to lose the round. But with the JBL Quantum 910 wireless, all you have to do is turn your head a little. Spatial audio helps a ton when it comes to assisting your teammates with accurate information. Let's say you're defending A after a plant on nuke, and it's a 1v1. Your opponent could be going slow through vents and coming up the ladder, or they could be coming up from behind, taking the other ladder to heaven. With QuantumSPHERE 360, hearing exactly where your opponents are coming from gets a lot easier. QuantumSPHERE 360 works with audio that is all around you, including above you, which is actually kind of rare in the world of virtual surround, and especially helpful on Nuke or any other game with verticality. Over in Valorant, how many times has an opponent been on the edge of your sound ring and you weren't sure where they were coming from? QuantumSPHERE 360 gives you positional cues earlier. QuantumSPHERE 360 can be a massive boon to players and shooters of all kinds. Have you ever been playing Rainbow Six Siege and gotten shot to death because you couldn't hear a Maverick blowtorching a hole in the wall? Just being able to hear Maverick's torch and knowing where he is from the sound cue will give you a massive edge in Siege. Plus, the JBL Quantum 910's noise cancelling just makes it easier to hear Mav's whisper quiet torch in general. And of course, if you're a Battle Royale gamer, QuantumSPHERE 360 will help you hear where exactly enemy squads are shooting at you from, particularly in situations where they're above or below you. And if you're not a PC gamer, JBL Quantum has you covered with the JBL Quantum 910P wireless for consoles and the JBL Quantum 910X wireless designed specifically for Xbox. So no matter what game you play, the JBL Quantum 910 wireless is just what you need to win. To find out more, visit jbl.com/gaming and follow JBL Quantum on Instagram to stay on top of the latest updates.